So we are going to get into short-term rentals this week. I I reached out to a few people to see if someone would want to co-host this one with me, because I don't actually own any short-term rentals. I have one that I'm currently converting into a short-term rental, and I'm toying with it. Everything I own is long-term. It's just been my plan to buy long-term rentals. They're more passive for a lot of reasons, but given where the interest rates are currently, it makes a lot of sense to consider a short-term rental for some of your single-family properties. And I'll get into why. All right. So first thing, leader intro. Who are we? Grid it's for investors, right? It's basically a network. There's hundreds of grid. I think there's thousands of grids all over the country. There's Grid Washington, Grid Philly. It's all over the place. I run Grid DELCO because I live in DELCO, and it's it's the only name I can think of. So I went with Grid DELCO. It's myself, my team, but this is really more of my passion hobby. My real estate sales team is my job. This is what I enjoy doing. So that's why I do it. The reason I run this group is because the best deals I've found as a real estate investor, not the best, but some of the best deals I've found have been off-market deals, right? It's really tough to compete against regular home buyers, right? If a property is on the MLS, your chances are you're not fighting against just investors anymore. It's someone that's going to buy that house and live in it. And if you're an investor, that leaves little to no meat on the bone. So ideally, if I can create a nice community of people that buy, sell, rent, invest, and we can share deals, it's good for everyone, right? And also, everyone, like I've said this all in the meetings, but all the properties I own with partners. I don't own anything by myself. My house, my wife owns half of that. So, if I ever decide to leave, problems. So, like nothing I own is mine, all mine, right? And I love to invest with partners because it makes it easier for me. Number one, it's easier to grow, but number two, it also avoids mistakes. If you have checks and balances, it's easier. You don't have to think about it all on your own because you miss things. So if I find people that I could partner with eventually, that's huge for me and people involved. The goal is to build a community. So we'd like to get as many people to come to these as possible. We'd like people to come here, share deals. As we grow, we're going to invite wholesalers, hard money lenders, more landlords, more realtors, whoever. This is for everyone. So that's the goal to accomplish. And you can connect with me through everything: Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm on TikTok now. I'm getting my views up. We're on YouTube, email. I'm not hard to get a hold of, and I'm one of those crazy people that try to get their inbox to zero. So you email me, I will respond at some point. It's just to get it out of my inbox. So I promise to respond. So I'm going to go around. Like what I normally do here is I tell you a little bit about myself, and then I go around, let everyone tell about themselves. No judgment here. Everyone is different levels. We want people from no investments to a ton of investments, right? And the goal is to have a varying level of understanding so people can grow from each other. And that's how I learn too, right? So I'm William Holder. I have lived in Delaware County since 2002. Before that, I was born and raised in Trinidad and Tobago. Moved here for family, went to high school, Roaster Media, finished high school, did DC Cubed, the typical DELCO move, and worked at a credit union for 8 years. And in that, bought my first house, realized I really liked the process of buying a house, got my real estate license while still working full time, and decided I like that more than my job. And I decided that in order to buy more real estate, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, like everyone who gets into real estate investing did or does. And I'm like, oh, I got to buy real estate. And my granddad in Trinidad, the house we built, he turned that into a 4-unit building after, or like, so in the event that when he passed away, it's income generating for our family. We still own that property. And sitting talking to my mom, and she's like, yeah, it needs a new roof. And I'm like, well, do you guys need cash? She's like, no, the money's, it takes care of itself. And I started to put it all together, red rich that I poured out. And I'm like, I got to do this. This is the only way I get out of the rat race. And, but also realized that to buy real estate, you got to make more money than your 9 to 5. And so I started trying to sell real estate on the side and decided I'm going to do it full time. Quit my job, started selling houses. Now I run a team, part owner in the brokerage, and I invest a lot in real estate. It's my passion. It's my hobby. I have 63 units now and 21 properties, and I think I'm just getting started, and I think if I could tell everyone to do it, do it, like people that are joining my team, agents, a prerequisite is you want to be a real estate investor, because any job is just a job. Selling real estate, even though I love it, it's just a job. Eventually I need a retirement, and you can get there a lot quicker if you do other things than just put money in your 401k. So my niche, pretty much everything I've done is BRRRRs. I do some flips. I'll do probably on average 2 a year in terms of flips. I don't think I've done more than 10 or 12 flips. I don't like flips because for a lot of reasons. There's tax. You have to pay taxes on them. That sucks. And it's not permanent. It's a job, right? So you do a flip, you get the money. All right, what's next? Got to do another flip to make more money. It's a job, right? Buying a rental property, even though it's a job, it's consistent income, all right? And you can plot it out a lot better if you understand how a rental property works. Not that I'm saying things wrong with flips. I do them. I use them to fund my rentals, right? So what I'm looking for are, now I am only really looking for apartment buildings. I don't like single family rentals, especially with the rates right now. It's just not for me. And that's actually why I'm converting one of my single family rentals into an Airbnb, is because at 9.5%, it's really hard to get your rent to cover your mortgage. It's just almost impossible in any property if you have a mortgage for more than like $200,000. It's not possible. So, and I think that's where we're going to be for a couple of years. So I think people need to adjust a bit. And how I hope to benefit from the group is, one, learn from some stuff from you guys, and 2, eventually get deals or do deals together. So that's me.
My name's Chris. I got into flipping and contracting, and got into real estate about 4 years ago. Me and my wife bought a couple of properties, and then I started flipping houses with my brother, and my son came along, and he wanted to get into real estate, so we joined up together. And then, no, I'm sorry. And now we have rental properties, and then we also do some smaller flips.
My name's Chris. I'm a recruiter by day, and then I manage the operation side of the rental business. Like he said, our niche is small flips, like lower DELCO, same with rentals, and dealing with wholesalers. Like Will said, 200 grand and above, you can't really do rentals right now, so you gotta find a competitive edge. So the more people you meet in the world, the better.
Yep.
What am I looking for? What was I like?
And if someone here were to have a deal for you, what would be the ideal?
Oh, so a townhome, 85 grand and lower, or row home, or a flip, 100 and lower, single family duplex.
Yeah.
And then how do I hope to benefit is meet like-minded people, and actually do deals. It's all about networks.
Yeah.
I'm Frank. My fiance Allison. So I recently moved in with Allison and I have my own place. She has her place. So we ended up renting my Philadelphia house out. So now that's a rental property. Kind of just wanted, we're using that experience, coming to these classes, kind of realizing what we need to do, make, as efficient as possible. So yeah, our plan is basically maybe to find like a livable house, like a long-term house, and then rent out her house as well and have 2 rental incomes, and then kind of just from those 2 properties, maybe start branching out into, like the apartment buildings and stuff like that. And yeah, we're just trying to get as much information. I mean, this one's, yeah, go
I
ahead.
bug you all the time
Go
about
ahead.
a beach house rental.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's why I
Mhm.
was here.
So,
We've actually said it. Her husband and her, they bought a house at the shore years
Yeah,
ago.
yeah.
And they make a lot of
they
money.
did very well with it, so
Yeah,
it's
for
definitely an
short-term
option.
rental, so That's my priority.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I'm with it. I'm not against it. So,
I had a buddy who bought a shore house at the shore in 2019 for like 600, and in 2021 they sold it for 800. They did nothing to it.
Yeah.
That's just how much it appreciated in those 2 years. Like, because of COVID, they were like, we're getting rid of this. Like, they were cashing out at the top. And they didn't really use it for Airbnb. It was for their family, so it really wasn't an income generator for them, and they weren't using it enough. But 200K in 2 years, that's
it covers the bills. We
Yeah.
go down there a couple weeks, maybe even off season. We love going down in the fall, spring. So have the summer peak season,
Yeah.
rent it out, and then we get to enjoy it in the off season when places are still open. I mean, that pays for itself for a couple of years till things fall in line and we get more time as we go on.
Yeah.
That's the plan.
All right. Same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my
Yeah.
priority thing, beach house rental.
Nice. Yeah.
I know we do say like, when we, people got our own houses, so we just.
Yeah, it kind of worked out that way.
And, it kind of like fell into having rental property.
Yep.
So, but
All right.
Hi, everybody. My name is Stephanie. Hope you're over. I grew up in Philly, but and it's so funny to know real estate, work for and but turned out she used to do it out quickly after crashing to that. She's back into that business now. She wishes that she left. She the 180.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that's a little bit here. To say that it's been a learning experience is an understatement. It's the gift that keeps on giving. So I'm here to learn. I didn't. In good shape, but it's old and William came and took a look at it. I've been trying to get out to the classes, but I'm trying to get here from Center City sometimes. But anyway, so my goal for being here is for community, of course. I know this is something that's in the conversation right now about, but that's
I know that I can look up, but I'm behind or whatever she do and build a house. I have more time in my hand. So I can help her out in whatever she needs to do, whatever she needs to do.
Awesome.
It's good. That's awesome. So yeah, I mean, that's exactly what this group is for. Just varying levels, understanding different things you can do to be profitable. So before we go too far, legal stuff. I am recording. It will be posted on YouTube. Anything I say, please don't use it to sue me. This is just free information. You know, you get it, right? I don't have to read that. All right. So what is a short-term rental, right? A short-term rental is a furnished vacation type rental property that's usually rented on a nightly or weekly basis. Weekly is usually down the shore vacation type rentals, whereas cities or commuter destinations are more nightly. But it's exactly what it is, a short-term rental, right? So the process of finding renters and managing the booking, communication, and payments has become much easier in recent years with platforms like Airbnb, VRBO, Vacasa, Flipkey. These have blown up the short-term rental market. Before Airbnb and VRBO, you used to have to find a realtor down the shore to rent a house out for a week and do that whole dance. Now, as the owner, you can almost do all of it yourself. And the platforms make it significantly easier. And there's some tools that we're going to go over from some of these platforms throughout this, but these are some great websites. Obviously, the two most popular are Airbnb and VRBO. Airbnb is having some financial problems these days because they overshot their possibilities with how hot things got during COVID. Everybody was living everywhere and renting everywhere because they can work from anywhere, and that's all changed. Employers are asking people to come back to work, and vacations aren't as hot when interest rates are 8.5%. You know, people are starting to slow down on the spending. You know, when Amazon's doing Prime Day a month early or a month and a half early, they're worried people aren't going to spend during Christmas, right? So if they're not spending on gifts, they're not spending on vacations, and that's affecting the vacation markets for sure. So why do it? Why put yourself through the tough road of doing an Airbnb? And why I say tough is because an Airbnb or a short-term rental is not passive at all. You are a hotel manager, essentially, right? That owns shares in that hotel, pretty much, right? You are in hospitality. You're not a landlord. You're not dealing with property managers. You are everything, right? So, and there are managers. We'll get into that in another slide, but that's essentially it. But why do it? In popular vacation and travel areas, the daily rental rates can be much higher than traditional long-term rentals, and that's 100% true. Much like a hotel, people will pay more for the convenience, added amenities, and uniqueness of a well-located, good-looking rental, right? So it makes sense. If you are going somewhere for a short period of time, you know, you want something that looks nice, but you also have the privacy. You don't have to worry about being in a hotel. You have some more flexibility. And some areas don't have a ton of hotels, like the Poconos or some more remote locations. And hotels traditionally are much more expensive too. So a lot of people consider Airbnbs. In the right areas, short-term rental rates can be 3, 5, even 10 times the typical monthly rate of a long-term tenant. That's also true. You know, if you think of your standard row home rental in Delaware County or Philadelphia, you're looking $1,300 to $2,000 a month in an average area. If you're renting an Airbnb for $250 a night, and you rent that out for half the month, it's a lot more money than $1,250 to $2,000. So the income off of it is generally higher if ran correctly. Where does it work? Anywhere people travel. Think vacation areas, convention centers, college towns. If it has good views, attractions, activities, and/or weather, it's probably a good candidate for a short-term rental. Also, for instance, like Tinicum in Delaware County is right by the airport. A lot of people that are like flight attendants that are in and out of the airport look for short-term rentals in that area. So it doesn't have to be a vacation rental. It could be just located near something like an airport, right? Or if there's a factory or that has commuting workers that come in for work on a regular basis. Like I know a lot of people in Canada, there's factories that are like in the tundra, like they run Airbnbs. They'll make a hotel an Airbnb because those guys need short-term rentals to come in and go out because nobody lives there. So it doesn't have to be just a vacation thing. You can get a strategic location like that. Also, a lot of university towns don't have hotels because they're not sustainable. And a good way to make a lot more money on your rentals around university town versus renting it for nothing, make it a short-term rental. When parents come in out of town to visit their kids, because they're doing it a few times a year, or their friends come to visit them, you can make a lot more money than just renting that place out for $800 a month. Even Swarthmore, they just put up the Swarthmore Inn 5 years ago. People would have to go at least Springfield, the closest, to come in for Swarthmore University. So a lot of towns are like that. So what kind of properties would work? Anything can work, really. Single family, townhouse, condo, a tent. And that's true. If you look on like Airbnb in some of these really rural areas, they have like these luxury tents. They call it glamour camping, where they will put together, they'll make a trailer look very nice, and you can roll up to that type of camping, So really anything. You can make anything an Airbnb. But if you're attached or close to neighbors, you'll have to deal with things like HOA rules, other regulations. Like, there's a lot of regulations, especially cities that have a ton of hotels in them. The hotel unions are fighting back against the Airbnbs, so the rules are stricter in those areas, right? Or areas that have a lot of HOAs, like the Poconos, those HOAs are fighting back against a lot of Airbnbs. The people that live there, not year round, but come more often and own homes there, don't want people that aren't from the neighborhood, coming and partying. And so they change the rules. And if you buy a property in an HOA and the HOA changes the rules, there goes your Airbnb, right? So be careful with that stuff. The key is to do your research. Find out what size, style of property is the most popular and profitable in a given market, right? All right, so what's the catch? This is hospitality, right? It's not housing. You're not providing a nice, clean apartment or house for someone to rent. You're in hospitality. You'll need to learn how to provide a clean, convenient, unique, and well-managed experience. Turnover inspections and cleanings are just the beginning. There will be complaints. You will need to be prepared to deal with them and maintain good reviews. 4.7 stars is the lowest acceptable rating on a platform. So out of 5. So if you are not a good property manager, most of these platforms will kick you off, right? You have to maintain a good rating. It's like, I don't know if you ever saw that Black Mirror episode where you have to have a social score, and if not, you get kicked out. That's what Airbnb is. And VRBO, these websites want you to maintain a high rating. So you have to be on the ball or get a property manager, right? If your tenant calls you, your long-term tenant, and the water heater blew and you can't get a plumber there till tomorrow, the tenant can't go on a website and review you. It just is what it is. Airbnb, you're getting a review right away. We're sitting here and there's water everywhere, right? That's things you have to consider. I've been to plenty of Airbnbs and like the internet stops working and you message them and immediately they're responding because they know it's a big deal, right? All right, so keep in mind, many jurisdictions are legislating short-term rentals out of existence due to complaints from neighbors, neighboring homeowners, and lobbying by the hotel industry. You will need to know the zoning laws, tax structure, hospitality taxes are high, and HOA restrictions and travel trends in your market. Pandemics can be a problem, obviously. Hospitality taxes, it's 8.5% to run an Airbnb in Philadelphia. Yeah, so it's expensive. And that's because of, the hotel industry. Pro tip. So stick to tourist destinations where the local economy is dependent on travel and tourism to reduce the issues with regulations and zoning codes that can affect your ability to operate, right? If it's if you go to like a neighborhood in the Poconos and it is all people that live there, you don't want to touch that. But if it's a neighborhood that you notice there's a lot of Airbnbs listed there, great, because they're more friendly to Airbnbs. So pick the area that makes sense, that you think will be safe to keep your value, right? Because if you can't generate the income you were planning on generating on that property and you need to sell it quickly, you're likely to lose money. So how do I get started? Start with Airbnb or VRBO. Research the market in areas where you already like to travel. So want to go to the beach? You know those towns very well. Get an Airbnb there. And if you buy it as a second home under your own name, most lenders will allow you to just put 10% down. It doesn't have to be 25% down because it's considered a second home. And they most likely will not follow up to confirm you're using it just as a second home. Most lenders don't. So a lot of people, that's how they get into it, because most investment properties, you're putting 25% down. If you're saying it's going to be your second home, they'll only let you do this once. So maybe you do one under you and one under you, and get 10% down each time. Airbnb has the biggest market. Most of them are on Airbnb. That is starting to shrink because Airbnb has put in some costs to offset their losses, and it's pissing off a lot of short-term landlords and owners. So VRBO is catching up to them pretty quickly right now. Things to research: the area, the competition, the customer, the property. I recently spoke to a guy who I was thinking about getting as a co-host for this one. I'll probably get him next year, but he only does Airbnbs. He only manages Airbnbs in the Poconos now, but he's from the Philly region. And he was recommended to me when I was looking for a host, and I spoke to him, and he's like, yeah, it was tough in Philly because you'd get people that like live in Philly, they're just looking for a place to stay overnight or a couple of nights, and they'd ruin the place sometimes. Whereas in vacation destinations, people aren't just looking for a place, they're planning to come there. So your likelihood of someone that is just in and out and doing damage is lessened. He gave up on managing properties in Philadelphia, Airbnb, and he does hundreds in the Poconos now and loves it, right? So figure out what your area looks like, the competition. If it's flooded with Airbnb, are you going to be profitable, right? Kind of have to have a bit of a balance. The customer and the property, property could be really expensive to maintain. Is it worth the investment? Is there a pool? Things like that you have to consider. Does it require flood insurance because it's on a lake? So consider all those things. The area, access to airports and towns, attractions and activities, and cleaning services. This is huge. You don't want to be going to your property every time someone leaves and having to clean your property. That's a job, right? That's not an investment at that point. So most areas that are heavy with Airbnbs have cleaning services, right? There are services that will go around, and as people check out, they're there to clean, get the property back in great shape, make it look beautiful. Airbnb does have some pretty strict rules, or VRBO as well. Like when you're leaving the property, most owners will leave a list of how the property should be returned. So every time I've gone to an Airbnb, we clean up before we leave. You're really just leaving like the surface level cleaning for the cleaners, right? You're putting it back in order, organizing all of that, stripping the sheets down. There's a lot you do before you leave as well. So you definitely want an area with a cleaning service. Competition. So how full is their calendar? How do their units look? How are their ratings? What amenities are they offering? What are their price points? Just like in anything, you want to be competitive, be better for a little bit less, right? So
Other Airbnb's calendar, how it's filled up.
AirDNA.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a website called AirDNA. It is if you have properties on Airbnb, you get it for free. If you don't, I think it's like a small monthly rate or something to rent it. But it will, and I think there's a slide on that. I'm pretty sure there is. It is really thorough. It tells you the average amount of days these properties been rented, average price for that type of property, everything. It's, it does the math for you. Tells you peak rental prices. They have dynamic pricing, which they'll price like a hotel does. Thursdays and Fridays are more expensive or Fridays and Saturdays are more expensive than Monday through Thursday. So yeah. And the customer, is it the area popular with families, outdoor types, large groups, conventions? This will tell you what kind of property would be the most popular. If, in Philly, like maybe a condo would make sense because people are coming in, they want to get in, they want to get out, versus a condo in the Poconos probably isn't great. There'll be a lot of people that are coming to stay. They want more space. They want amenities. So understand, like I said, with Tinicum, you want like a bunch of rooms. You want like a house split up into 4 or 5 rooms, because people are coming in, they're just looking to sleep and get out. They're not looking for amenities, right? So base the property on the clientele you're looking for. Like I said, the property needs to match your demographic. Don't buy a condo in an area where cabins are popular. Getting ahead of myself too much. If the competition all has pools, you'll need a pool, right? So know that. And if you don't want to deal with the pool or the insurance of having a pool on an investment property, maybe don't invest in that area, right? And the risk, there's risk of having a pool. Check the property values versus rental rates, and buying new or custom building can actually work if the rent supports it. So just like we were talking about with single families right now, buying most single families at today's interest rates don't make sense. But in most markets, Airbnb will support it if it's managed correctly. So the biggest numbers you'll need to know is the occupancy rate. What percentage of the month can you expect to be rented? The nightly rate, what's the average rate in the area? Your occupancy rate versus your average nightly rate equal, and then your effective nightly rate times 365 days a year equal your annual gross income, right? How much should I expect it to be rented? How often? On average, how much? Multiply that, and you figure out how much you make every month, right? Multiply that by 12, you figure out how much you make every year. Subtract your expenses, figure out your income, right? Units are rented 75% of the time. This is an example. Units are rented 700% of an average of $200 per night. I'll give you like a real example. So the property I'm looking to convert to an Airbnb is in South Philly, and AirDNA says that market is rented. I think it was like 45% of the month. It's on average they're rented, but the average rent per night was like $241. So even at 12 days a month at $241 is more than I would make for a $1,700 monthly rent. All right. So you figure out how often it's rented per month. They're doing it on an annual basis. I like to look on a monthly basis because I need to know if I'm covering my expenses monthly, and yeah, AirDNA is a website that sells data on rental metrics in most markets. If you have an Airbnb profile, I believe that comes free. If you want to just sign up, I don't know, $10 a month or something, but it's everything you'll need. It'll tell you all of these things. You don't have to go searching and putting together spreadsheets. Management. You can manage a few or more units yourself. And if it becomes your job, you can manage a lot, right? But you will need to be available almost 24 hours a day to handle emergencies and oversee turnover, cleaning, maintenance, supplies, and more. All right, things happen. People are getting an Airbnb in a vacation destination. They're probably partying all night, and things might happen at 2 a.m. So that's a reality. And remember when I was like 22, we had a party at the DoubleTree Inn or hotel in Wilmington, and I'm pretty sure I'm still banned from there. So luckily I'm not that guy anymore, but that's how people act, like they break into the pool at 2 a.m. So remember, hospitality, professional management will cost between 20 and 50% of the gross rents. That's a bit high. I've been shopping around. most Airbnb managers will charge you, if the property makes less than 50,000 a year, about 25%. If it makes between like 50 and 75, they actually lower it. So they'll do like 20% or 15%. And if it makes over 75, they'll do 15 or less, right? The more they can make off of it, the less they're going to charge you. It's something to really consider though, because if your mortgage payment is, you know, $2,000 with taxes and insurance, and you're paying 8.5% to Philadelphia, and you're paying 4% to Airbnb, and you're paying cleaning services, then you have to pay a property manager 25%, you might be losing money. So factor that in before you go hire a property manager. You might actually want to manage it yourself until it starts to become profitable and you can have a manager. And they can charge more if they're managing more, of course. There are online platforms, so there's like nationwide platforms that do Airbnb management, but you need someone local. I mean, they're gonna have to run to the property a lot. Find a local Airbnb manager. You know, if you're going to the Poconos, you're going to the beach, wherever, Utah, like find someone in that area. You know, like you need someone there. They need people there. Multi-channel. So a lot of people, what I've found, they'll put their properties on Airbnb and VRBO. And then when you try to book through them, they'll connect you separately and say, hey, do you just want to pay me off of this website and I'll give you a reduced rate? Because they know how much Airbnb and VRBO are charging them. So they use it to market the property and then they rent it off site. There's risk with that. They do. Yeah. And you have to be careful. There's risk for the person doing it, the landlord, because if these platforms find out, they'll remove your listing. And then for the person renting, if the landlord tries something shady, you don't have anything to go back on, right? Like, you know, our friends rented a property for a bachelorette party in like Avalon or something, and they left the place immaculate, but there was like one like tiny piece of confetti shaped in a, you know, obscene figure, and it was on a piece of table, and it table was white and the confetti was pink, and it left like a pink smeared obscene little penis, you know. And the landlord tried to take their entire deposit, which was like $2,300 or something. And yeah, I was like, and they asked me my opinion, and I was like, give me the guy's email, you know, and I wrote him a pretty nasty email and we got it back. But they could try that stuff, you know, like that's what could happen. So there's risk to booking off, even if it's cheaper, you know. Dynamic pricing, which is great. Obviously, if there's a Phillies game, we're in the, you know, we're in the playoffs, pricing for Philly rentals goes up. You need to know that if you're that manager. Well, most of these platforms prompt you at that. They'll tell you, hey, the average price per night is currently going up for a specific reason. So your city's doing great, you know, Sundays and playoff games are going to make you a lot more money than your average day. So understand that, understand your pricing, and let it fill up your calendar as much as you need to. And then also reducing it if there's too much availability.
You can walk into the stadiums and house.
Mhm.
And they're all like, "Why are you getting
I should raise the rent for this one.
Yeah, right. Yeah, man. And you're that's yeah. It comes with free fireworks. Like, yeah. They come with a lot of free fireworks, you know, down there. Like, so other consideration: learn to review dispute resolutions or arbitration processes for your platform. Stuff will get broken. Guests will make outrageous claims. A good platform will be helpful and fair to both sides. You need a mediator. You know, people can be pretty unfair, and owners can be too, but people that want hospitality can think the world needs to bend over backwards for them. And if your rating starts to go down, it can affect your business. So you need a lot of patience to be in the hospitality business, and even more so than just being a standard long-term landlord. And, you know, make sure you're built for that, you know, or get a property manager. Be unique. Think yurts, tree houses, boats, Airstreams. So they put together these old Airstream trailers and they call it glamping. It's pretty cool, actually. It's probably the only way I would go camping, to be honest with you, but I'm not really an outdoor kind of guy. Tiny houses, a unique look or experience will bring more revenue. There's a series on Netflix about unique Airbnbs, and it's pretty cool. You get to see some like very different setups, like that people put out there, and they rent a lot, like, and they make a ton of money. It's about the experience. If you're looking to rent a place to come stay in Philly, you want that place to stand out, right? Like you're going to be going through the pictures, and everyone that looks like your typical gray walls, gray floors, white cabinets, you're going to move on because they all look that way. But if there's neon signs up and arcade game in the corner and different things to draw people in that they can do whilst they're there in the property, you're going to make more money. You have to take it seriously. So pro photos, good furniture, designs, rules and standards. You post your rules in your property, and make sure people stick to them. Measure and track what works and what the competition is doing. Always follow what the competition is doing and try to do it different or better. You will succeed or fail based on your ability to stand out and get a 5-star review. So it's all based on reviews, right? Like, take time to do research and find the right kind of property in the right area and invest in good designs and furnishings. Yes, you're looking to make a lot of money, but you're also looking to protect your value of your property. So, you find that balance. Other resources, there's a lot of big Airbnb folks. Kai Andrews is one of them. He's a YouTuber and Airbnb expert. And, a lot of books out there are written about it now, a lot of information. I'm all about free information. Like, I don't like to pay for anything. It's just because there's 100 million podcasts and YouTube videos when it comes to anything, any of the topics we talk about too. And that's where I learned everything I did, like outside of like an audio book, which every now and then I'll buy one of those. But for the most part, everything you need to find is out there for free or coming to seminars like this, right? And there's people giving away that information because they know it's only better if you have better investors, right? If you make overall landlording look better, overall Airbnb look better for everyone. Rates go up, reputations go up. So ton of free information around there. And local experts in the area can certainly help as well. Questions? Anything?
Do you think there's an oversaturation problem? And I guess it's 2 questions. Do you think local governments, I know cities are cracking down on New York City, banned a lot of them. Do you think that's a future problem or a more magnified problem going forward?
Yeah, just like anything new, there's always a strong pushback, and then you find like that middle ground eventually. Airbnb isn't necessarily new, but it really ramped up during COVID. Like it didn't naturally grow, it just blew up, right? And a lot of these, like anything like Uber, when Uber happened, all of the cab unions were up in arms, right? And took a lot of lobbying and greased the right pockets to make it work out, right? It's going to be the same. There is pushback right now in all the cities, Philly, because the hotels were hurting, and especially the hospitality industry during COVID hurt a lot. So they're trying to make up that margin. If the competition's that stern, yes. So pay attention to where it is. HOAs in the Poconos, I know a bunch of those HOAs banned Airbnbs completely, or they have really strict rules that make it almost impossible to have an Airbnb. Like they won't let you sell or give like lake tags to people if they're not residents. Like, what's the point? So they're just making it so that it's tough for a lot of people. What I think that will do in the end is just make it better. I think you'll get all the tire kickers out of that industry, that just are looking to make a quick buck, and then you get the serious investors that know how to manage their properties and provide a great experience. And that's kind of like how it worked in everything. At first there's the gold rush, everybody jumps on it, and you deal with a lot of crap, and then eventually when it shakes out, the right people stick around. I think there's anything wrong with it. I think it's a great way to make money, but it's a job. It's a pretty intensive job, but it's a lot of money. You have 3 really good Airbnbs that are profiting you 50 grand a year each, that's real. Like, and that happens easily. So not easily, but if you're a good Airbnb manager, so you can leave your job and just do that, right? Buy more Airbnbs, or use that money the right way and buy long-term rentals, so there's always going to be that shift. But I think if you're good, you don't have anything to worry about.
I know you're trying to start one of your own. In your research, getting started, what have you found the insurance rates? Like, how drastic a difference?
It's not really that drastic, because when they're booking through these platforms, they're also paying for insurance. So there's like an added level. Yeah. Yeah. So actually it's even better than most. I actually started for like my long-term rentals, I started requiring people to have pets to get pet insurance. And it's been helping my long-term insurance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because if they leave and I have to replace a bunch of flooring, that's on their insurance. Yeah.
Pet insurance?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would something like that?
It doesn't cost anything. Well, the tenant pays for it.
but
Yeah.
What kind of expense? Is it?
It's less than $20 a month. It's not expensive. Yeah.
That's health insurance.
It's like less than 20 a month, I think.
Wow.
Yeah. 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 It's not too much that it's too much for the tenant.
Exactly.
And then, I don't have to worry so much about a security deposit for the pet. If your pet does damage, that's going to be on you, because you're going to have a bad insurance rating from it. You want to be a good pet owner and tenant, take care of your pets, because then I'm not going to tap your insurance. There's great stuff like that out there. There's, So, and that's kind of the idea behind Airbnb is also it goes both ways. If you're a really bad occupant, you get a terrible rating from the owner, and then you can't keep renting places. They will ban you. So it does go both ways. These systems, even though they're expensive, they are purposeful. All right, so I'm going to stop